Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mali Investment Talks. I am once again your host, Joseph Areu, and I look forward to empowering you, helping you, enabling you to be able to make financial decisions which will result into financial independence for you going forward. I will repeat even before I proceed to tell you what I'm going to tell you today, that I am trying to make sure that whatever decisions you make when it comes to financial investments, they are based on some knowledge. And if you don't have that knowledge by yourself, please do always consult. Talk to a financial advisor like myself, or indeed like someone else who understands what product you are going to invest in. Because many of these products, it must be said, tend to be abstract. They are not real. They are not things that you can feel and touch. And that means that there is need to understand the details of the product well. Also, there is need to always be comfortable with the credibility of the issuer or the provider of that product. So please, if you are going to take just one thing from these talks, it should be the fact that you should develop a healthy level of skepticism and always ask questions. Talk to your financial advisor or someone who understands the product you want to buy. Now, we have been talking about bonds. We talked about corporate bonds, we talked about treasury bonds, and some of the do's and don'ts. Bonds, by definition, tend to be long-term, more than 1 year in tenor, maturity period. Okay, today we want to talk about similar securities, also in the sense that they are basically debt. You are lending money to an entity like government or a company, but shorter term, usually 1 year or less. In the case of government, if you're lending to government short term, these are called treasury bills. And I did talk about them earlier, but I want to talk a little more about them, talking about do's and don'ts today. In the case of companies or corporations, the short-term debt securities, a short-term lending that you give to them, is usually called in the industry corporate paper. Okay, in Kenya, I know that there are quite a number of companies which issue corporate paper, short-term loans by investors into the company. I mean, the investors basically lend the money or lend money to the company for a short period of time, usually 1 year or less. Right. So, again, these products are generally good for short-term liquidity because you've lent it maybe for a year or less, 6 months, 3 months, and that kind of thing. So within a short time, you should be able to get your money, right? And they're generally at a low level of risk, although I will repeat to you again, if you're lending short term, if you're buying a treasury bill, so you're lending short term to government, then the risk is definitely going to be much lower than if you are lending to a company through what we call corporate paper. So once again, please understand that if a company is borrowing from you, yes, everything will be contractually promised, but you are not necessarily going to take away all the risk that is inherent in that transaction simply by having a contract. So the level of risk you're exposing yourself to when you're lending to companies is going to be much higher than when you're lending to government. However, the opportunities are there, the products are there. So again, it behooves you to understand well the fundamentals of that company. I will repeat. I know that in Kenya a few years ago, again, a few companies did have a lot of problems, business issues, struggled. Some went basically under, a lot of restructuring, and in that process, a lot of investors did lose some money. So you want to be aware of that situation and try to avoid it. The other thing I would say with regard to short-term debt to whether government or corporations is it follows, because they are short-term, it means that you should not be investing in these instruments for the longer term. So if you are looking at money which you want to invest for, say, a period 5 or 10 years, then maybe these instruments are not necessarily or not really the best ones for you. These instruments are basically designed for short-term liquidity, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then you get your money back. These instruments, again, do not yield. So while your money is invested with the company or with government for that short period of time, you're not getting anything, any payment, until maturity, when you then get paid whatever is owed to you. All right? In other words, what we call the future or the face value of that instrument. So just again be aware that you should not be expecting any yields from these products. Finally, you again should remember that these products, just like bonds, do not compound, meaning that whatever return that you get from that product is not going to be reinvested. You should be aware of that. If you need to reinvest it, well, you should be the one to reinvest it yourself. There is no automatic compounding. And so in the final analysis, the returns that you can expect from treasury bills, from corporate paper, because of the very short maturity, will invariably not be very high. Okay, compensating for the high liquidity, the short term, the returns are unlikely to be very high. But in the short term, it's a good product to give you liquidity at a reasonably low risk. A much lower risk if you are lending to government, but potentially not a very low risk if you are lending to corporations or to companies. Thank you very much again for listening to me, for watching me. Do remember to always reach out to me or to another financial advisor if you need details about these products. And do remember to subscribe to this show or to this channel so that you are able to get subsequent updates as and when I provide them. Thank you very much.